This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday edition of Edmonton Oilers Talk on the channel today. And, well, my friends, is trapped in snowy Sylvan Lake this weekend as we're currently just trying to figure out when's the optimal time to hit the QE2 back down to Airdrie and try and get ready for work on Monday, a big day ahead. As of course, when it's snowy out and you gotta go out and about on the delivery truck, well, let me tell ya, that makes for an interesting start to the week. So, that is neither here nor there when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, but that's kind of what's facing me. And now we can talk about what's facing the Edmonton Oilers coming up this week in the retrospective of defending Darnell Nurse after 12 games in the NHL season. So, before we do that though, I want you to hit that subscribe button if you would be so kind and stick around for Edmonton Oilers talk throughout the season. And I know, you know what, I make big bones about this every single video. I try to put that out there about the minute into every video just simply because if you don't ask, you don't get. And that's something very evident on YouTube to me on this return that I'm now just over 2 months into. However, folks, if you're watching on just YouTube and the only way you find me is because you've watched me before and you don't have a YouTube account, thank you so much for watching me this weekend, watching me any time of the day. Really appreciate it and really thankful you allow me to do what I do here on Dolynny TV day in, day out. Alright, Oilers doing what they do day in, day out. Well, that is playing NHL hockey. But first, we got to defend Darnell Nurse through 12 games simply because I read an interesting tweet thread today, and it was from Jonathan Willis of The Athletic, kind of going through what's going on with the Oilers overall on the metrics, right? 5v5, power play, penalty kill, everything like the metrics behind the game within the game. I know it's very often when people say, well, the spreadsheets don't mean anything. What the spreadsheets dictate, the advanced analytics dictate, is simply put the game within the game. How everything breaks down to equal the whole sum that the eye test gives you. That's more or less what the advanced analytics do, in my opinion. And what was interesting there with that Jonathan Willis article, well, tweet thread today, I could bring it up, but it's 1,000,001 threads long and I don't want to scroll for you and have to explain it all, is he brings up one simple put on the Oilers defense where he said, you know, the Oilers defense is struggling, but it's not Darnell Nurse who's leading the way in that department or even factoring in to how bad the Oilers defense on the eye test has been this season. And that is to a caveat there, as I'd mentioned in the video yesterday, of the Oilers defense is night and day in front of Stuart Skinner versus in front of Jack Campbell. That's kind of what we've seen this season. Obviously, Skinner has a smaller sample size, but you have seen in Skinner's starts a completely different team in front of him as opposed to the team in front of Jack Campbell. To those of you that are still out there thinking I'm hunting down Jack Campbell and trying to scapegoat him for everything that goes wrong when he's in net, that is not the case. That is not the case. And that is exactly what I'm trying to prove here with this Darnell Nurse video today, is that everybody's scapegoating Darnell Nurse as the reason why the Oilers defense is failing. It is not the case. Darnell Nurse is actually now, contract-wise, leadership-wise, the captain on the Oilers blue line, more or less the only member of the Oilers blue line that wears an A on this team. And, right, Connor McDavid is the captain of the team, but Darnell Nurse is the captain of the defense. And outside of the Darnell Nurse-Cody Ceci pairing, which was mentioned by Jonathan Willis, this is why I'm still going with this tweet thread, is Jonathan Willis mentioned that the Darnell Nurse-Cody Ceci pairing has not worked as effectively as it did last year, and in fact has been a negative in a lot of columns for the Oilers when it comes to defending. Darnell Nurse with Tyson Barrie and Evan Bouchard has been enough of a plus two ways to offset the negative brought on by Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci. I invite you to go read the tweet thread for yourself. It explains itself kind of more there, but that is the sum of kind of what's happening on Jonathan Willis's Twitter this morning. All right, you ready? That's it. That's all we have to go. That's the prelude 5 minutes in to explain why we're doing a video defending Darnell Nurse through 12 games. Now, we go right here to this graphic here. Darnell Nurse, and I got this comment yesterday, is Darnell Nurse does not need to be a 70-point defenseman. He needs to shut it down. That's all that we care about. Simply put, for 9 million, whatever it is, Darnell Nurse needs to score points. I don't care how good or bad he's shutting it down. If he's not scoring points at the same time, we got a problem. Now with 8 points in 12 games, that, my friends, bingo. I love to see defensive scoring on the Oilers. If you have watched the Oilers for the past 5-6 years, you would know defensive depth scoring has been a huge issue on this team for the past 5-6 years. Now, you look at this, Darnell Nurse, 8 points in 12 games, 66% of the time he's getting a point in a game. He's got 3 goals, he's got 5 assists. You look at those totals, right? You math that out over the span of potentially 82 games, and it comes up with some really nice numbers. It tells me that Darnell Nurse will have 55 points in 82 games this season. That's what it tells me. If you look at the analytics here, totally. So, you ready? That's where we sit. Is Darnell Nurse is on roughly a 50-plus point, best point campaign of his career situation. That's what we sit here. Now, what else you need to see, though, in these NHL extra stats is right here, the takeaways, giveaways. So, yes, is there room for Darnell Nurse to improve? Has Darnell Nurse been an elite defenseman this year? No. But is Darnell Nurse the problem with the Oilers defense? No. And we will get to the next chart possible here. And this is the Skater Advanced statistics here for the Oilers this season, according to hockeyreference.com. And we look at, simply put, one thing I want to show you right now. Brad Malone, irrelevant, played a few games, does not matter. Darnell Nurse, in this argument, though, is the relevant topic and leads through 12 games with the most defensive zone starts at 5-on-5 on this Oilers team. If you go all situations, Darnell Nurse actually starts above almost 68% of the time in the defensive zone. So you talk about a guy who has, given every single situation on the ice, the toughest situation to play in as a defenseman on this Oilers team, right? He is the guy tasked night in, night out for average 23 minutes and 24 seconds on the game to defend the zone, right? 60, almost 70% of the time he is in the defensive zone starting a face-off, right? That's a tough go, right? We got to account for that there. Now you look here too, for Darnell Nurse, a 52.1 Corsi for percentage. So despite starting in the defensive zone 5-on-5 nearly 60% of the time, Darnell Nurse is still able to impact the game offensively, driving play 5-on-5 with the puck, more so than having the other team drive the play against him. That's what the Corsi 4 percentage shows you. The Fenwick 4 percentage is just kind of an absolute all catch-all for Corsi, and it's still above 50%. It's by 0.6, but you look at these chart numbers here, is there's very few players better than Darnell Nurse, and they are all forwards. So Darnell Nurse very much so driving the play for the Oilers 5-on-5 in the 5-on-5 situations, despite being tasked with defending the most. So when you kind of translate that out, right, he's playing 19 minutes and 34 seconds time on ice, even strength a night, and still averaging a situation where he is a plus player on this Oilers team. You kind of look at the other Oilers defenseman numbers, and it's not so good. So you can kind of see that on the chart. I don't have to explain that there for you. But you look at this number here. I'm going to point to it on my mouse just so as I can see it, is the on-ice save percentage. Is you look at those on-ice save percentages down the column and you kind of map it out, right? For the Oilers, Darnell Nurse tasked with 23 minutes and 24 seconds time on ice. Of course, when goals go in, he is likely 1/3 of the game to be on the ice and still averaging a 911 save percentage on the net when he's out there on the ice even strength. Well, Jack Campbell's below 880 save percentage right now, and Stuart Skinner's had a pretty good save percentage. So Darnell Nurse being at 91.1 there, pretty solid. Cody Cece's at 91.6, but we just scroll down, right? Tyson Barrie's up there at 95.3, but only playing 1911 on the game, and obviously only playing 1428 even strength time. So you got to remember 5 minutes a game Tyson Barrie's playing on the power play, where we're not giving up a ton of shorthanded goals, obviously. Brett Kulak's at 95.6 as well, but that's your oddity at even strengths where he's only playing a total of 1445. And then, of course, here too, you look at everything else. Evan Bouchard's at 86.0, Marcus Niemelainen's at 92.9, and Ryan Murray's at 87.0. So it's not like Darnell Nurse is drastically below everybody else, given the relative time on ice, relative situations where he is starting more often than not in the defensive zone, right? Cody Cece starts 2% less of his draws in the defensive zone. You've got Tyson Barrie, who starts almost 9% less, 8.5% less in the defensive zone. You've got Brett Kulak, who starts drastically less, almost 12% of the time less in the defensive zone. Where else is Evan Bouchard, who starts almost 19% less of the time, and Marcus Niemelainen, who's 19% there, and Ryan Murray, who is a solid 19 exact below Darnell Nurse. So you look at that, there is a 91.1 save percentage. You tell me, would you take a 91, like 911, .911 save percentage out of your goaltender every single night of the season? I think if Jack Campbell could ever get back there to that point this NHL season, we'd be talking about Jack Campbell having a great year. So for Darnell Nurse to have that kind of nice save percentage, despite the time on ice, despite the defensive zone starts, and all in favor also driving play at 5-on-5 in the Corsi percentage, is phenomenal. Situation dictates, yes, the eye test says that Darnell Nurse is not having a very good year, but actually Darnell Nurse is having a pretty good year, all things considered. And that's what the argument in this video is. Obviously, the giveaway takeaway column is one thing you can point to and say, oh my goodness, that's a problem, right? Is you cannot be giving away the puck 17 times more than you've taken it away through 12 games. You're averaging a lot of giveaways, almost 2 giveaways a game as a defenseman, and where do those giveaways usually happen? In your own end. So it's not that Darnell Nurse has been perfect, it's not even that Darnell Nurse has been great, but Darnell Nurse, all things considered, has been leading the way on the Oilers' blue line, whether we as fans like it or not. Folks, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thanks so much for tuning into this extended Sunday morning edition. Like I said earlier, if you're new to the channel and want to consider subscribing, I'd love to have you around, because as some folks pointed out yesterday and I pointed out in my video, it's a long season, 82 games, and we're only 12 games in. I'm up on out of here.